Hello everyone. First of all, thank you all for liking my Monimala Muktamala series. You're listening to it and liking it. I'm really grateful to you all. I consider this series as my tribute to the great legend, the Satyajit Ray, and to his creation of Gopika in Bagamain franchise. If you haven't listened to this series yet, I urge you all to visit my channel and listen to the stories. Even if you don't like it, share your feedback with me so that I can incorporate those and improve my work of fiction. So that's what I have to say in the beginning. Now let's get back to what to the main content of this video. So why I am making this video or even writing these Monimala Muktamala stories? Because I am a fantasy buff. Starting from my college research papers to my LinkedIn post, you will find fantasy fiction related stuff everywhere. Even I myself wrote two fantasy fictions named Rudra Pratap and Sitara. If you want to read these novels, they are available on Pocket Novel, and I'm providing the links of those stories in the description box. You can any day visit and read these novels.
But what exactly appeals to me when you utter the phrase once upon a time? There are numerous things besides the colorful landscape, magical creatures, and mind blowing spells. But there is nothing more appealing than how this fiction bridges nations and cultures. And when I say culture, I mean the Western and the Eastern culture. Yes, that's true. And even though the list here is long, I would like to address a few. So, here it goes. Most of you have read the Harry Potter series, and some of you, like me, are even waiting for your Hogwarts letter that got jinxed and never reached us. So, if you are a Harry Potter fanatic, you must be aware of the term hippogriff. That's right, I'm talking about Buckbeak, one of Hagrid's magical creatures saved by Harry and Hermione in the third book, The Prisoner of Azkaban. Now, have a close look at Buckbeak. It is a unique breed that blends the features of what I think is a horse and a bird. Now, I will show you another picture. Although the picture is a bit hazy because the prints of this book available to me in hard copies and soft copies are old enough. But I still believe you won't have problem in understanding this image. So here is the image. These birds are known as Bangoma bangomin. You will find their names in various Bengali folklore, but I found them in the Bengali story Lal Komol Nil Komol by Dokkhina Ranjan Mitra Mojumdar. Look at these images carefully. Don't you find these similar to hippogriffs? Did Rowling got inspired by our folklore? But wait, there is more. Let's move backward. Who isn't aware of Aurora? If you haven't watched the movie Sleeping Beauty or read it, you must have at least once watched the movie called Maleficent. Yes, most of you have watched this movie, so you're pretty much aware of this story. However, do you know this story first appeared in the collection of Grimm's fairy tale, where the story was known as Little Briar Rose. So the story goes like this. A cruel fairy who was the unlucky 13th and therefore doesn't have a seat in the royal naming ceremony of the princess cast a spell on her and ensures that when the newborn princess of the kingdom turns 16, she will prick herself with a needle and die. But some virtuous fairies blessed her by saying she wouldn't die but fall asleep in a deep magical sleep and would only be woken with the help of a true love's kiss. Even though the king and queen tried to save her, she fell asleep on her 16th birthday. 100 years later, a wandering prince finds the castle, falls in love with the princess, and kisses her while breaking the sleeping curse.
However, the Grimm's fairy tale, The Little Briar Rose, cannot be considered as an original story because there are several versions to it, and one of the most earliest and the most gruesome version was Giam Batista Basil's Sun, Moon, and Talia. Pardon me if I'm mispronouncing the names. I'm very bad with the foreign names, so I'm asking for your forgiveness in the beginning only. Now let's get back to the video. So as I was saying, Gian Battista's Basirs, Sun, Moon and Thalia was one of the earliest and one of the most gruesome version of Sleeping Beauty, where you will find themes like rape and necrophilia. Thus, many theorists believe that it wasn't Battista's version of Sleeping Beauty that inspired the Grimm's brothers. Instead, they believe it was Charles Perrault's version of the Sleeping Beauty, which was called The Sleeping Beauty in the Woods, that inspired the Grimm's brothers to write their story, The Little Briar Rose. So this was the story of Little Briar Rose, or this Disney's version of Sleeping Beauty. However, we are not talking about Sleeping Beauty in this video. We are talking about the similarities existing between the Eastern and the Western cultures' folklores or fairy tales. So this brings me to my next book, to my next story. It was written by Dakshinaranjan Mitra Majumdar, and you can find this story in this collection of book called Thakumar Jhuli. The name of this story is Ghumontopuri. So by any chance, any of you have read this story? If you haven't read this story, I am reading a short piece from this book to let you know the similarities between these stories. So here it goes. I am reading from the middle of it actually, not from the beginning. ফুলবনের কাছে গিয়া রাজপুত্র দেখেন ফুলের বনে সোনার খাট, সোনার খাটে হীরার ডাট, হীরার ডাটে ফুলের মালার দোলান রহিয়াছে, সেই মালার নিচে হীরার নালে সোনার পদ্ম, সোনার পদ্মে এক পরমা সুন্দরী রাজকন্যা বিভোরে ঘুমাইতেছেন. So I'm not explaining or translating the entire thing, just letting you know it's giving you a description of a princess sleeping in her royal bed. Now let's continue. ঘুমন্ত রাজকন্যার হাত দেখা যায় না, পা দেখা যায় না, কেবল চাঁদের কিরণ মুখখানি সোনার পদ্মে সোনার পাপড়ির মধ্যে টুলটুল করিতেছে। রাজপুত্র মতির ঝালর হীরার ডাটে ভর দিয়া অবাক হইয়া দেখিতে লাগিলেন. So it's talking about the Prince O when he saw the beautiful princess lying on her bed and sleeping. So that's the main crux of the entire thing. Now let's move. দেখিতে দেখিতে কত বৎসর চলিয়া গেল, রাজকন্যার ঘুম আর ভাঙে না, রাজপুত্রের চোখের পলক আর পড়ে না, রাজকন্যা অঘরে ঘুমাইতেছেন, রাজপুত্র বিভোর হইয়া দেখিতেছেন. So unlike the Disney's version of Sleeping Beauty or Little Briar Rose, here the prince does not immediately kisses the princess. He actually gets awed by the beauty of the princess. He was dumbfounded, bewildered, and he was stunned, and he was almost in an inactive state, paralyzed state to do anything, any kind of activity. Okay, now what happens? Let's read it. হঠাৎ একদিন রাজপুত্র দেখেন রাজকন্যার শিয়রে এক সোনার কাঠি। রাজপুত্র আস্তে আস্তে সোনার কাঠি তুলিয়া লইলেন। সোনার কাঠি তুলিয়া লইতেই দেখেন আর একদিকে আরেকটা রূপার কাঠি। রাজপুত্র আশ্চর্য হইয়া রূপার কাঠিও তুলিয়া লইলেন। দুই কাঠি হাতে লইয়া রাজপুত্র নাড়িয়া চাড়িয়া দেখিতে লাগিলেন। দেখিতে দেখিতে সোনার কাঠিটি কখন টুক করিয়া ঘুমন্ত রাজকন্যার মাথায় ছুঁইয়া গেল। অমনি পদ্মের বন শিউরে উঠিল, সোনার খাট নড়িয়া উঠিল, সোনার পাপড়ি ঝরিয়া পড়িল। রাজকন্যা হাত হইল, পা হইল, গায়ে আলস ভাঙিয়া চোখের পাতা কচলাইয়া ঘুমন্ত রাজকন্যা চমকিয়া উঠিয়া বসিলেন. So since we can understand it's an story written in the Eastern culture, and here kisses are not very frequent like they are frequent in the Western cultures. So obviously here you won't find the kiss happening. Instead there are apparatus like a golden stick and a silver stick, and with the touch of this golden stick the princess wake up from her sleep. But except for this kissing part, this is more or less the similar thing happening here. So Ghumontopuri and Little Briar Rose has many similarities, especially the themes of both the stories are same. But Ghumontopuri is of Bengali folklore, and although it got published as a part of a collection of stories called Thakumar Jhuli, in 1907 it was as Tagore had said in the preface of this book, that it is all the stories in ঠাকুমার ঝুলি are completely part of the Bengali culture, and he even termed ঠাকুমার ঝুলি as the most Swadeshi of all time. Here is the proof. In the preface of ঠাকুমার ঝুলি, Tagore had written, ঠাকুমার ঝুলিটির মতো এত বড় স্বদেশী জিনিস আমাদের দেশে আর কি আছে. So he is telling that nothing is more significant and more Swadeshi than ঠাকুমার ঝুলি. And why he is telling that? Let's read. কিন্তু হায়, এই মোহনঝুলিটিও ইদানিং ম্যানচেস্টারের কল হইতে তৈরি হইয়া আসিতেছিল. এখনকার কালের বিলাতের ফেয়ারি টেলস আমাদের ছেলেদের একমাত্র গতি হইয়া উঠিবার উপক্রম করিয়াছে. স্বদেশের দিদিমার কোম্পানি একেবারে দেউলে. তাদের ঝুলি ঝাড়া দিলে কোনো স্থলে মার্টিনের এথিক্স এবং বার্কের ফরাসি বিপ্লবের নোটবই বাহি হইয়া পড়িতে পারে. কিন্তু কোথায় গেল রাজপুত্র পাত্তরের পুত্র, কোথায় ব্যঙ্গমা ব্যঙ্গমী, কোথায় 7 সমুদ্র 13 নদী পারে 7 রাজার ধন মানিক. So it is a very clear proof that Tagore is telling this collection of ঠাকুমার ঝুলি a part of the Bengali culture, the Bengali folklore, which has which during the time of the colonial period was replaced by the English or the European fairy tales. And since the publication of this book, he believed that the age-old Bengali folklore, Bengali fairy tales will become a part of the Bengali household or the Indian household. So it is quite a proof that ঠাকুমার ঝুলি collections is purely Bengali, purely Eastern and purely Oriental. So now that when we are comparing the themes of these stories, which one is a Bengali, Oriental and Indian story, and the other has German, French and Italian roots, we see the themes of all these stories are same. So how come these two varied worlds, when it comes to fairy tales, the themes become so similar, so strikingly similar?
So, can we say that once we all lived together and were one until a division occurred? Maybe a geological or a climatic one. It separated us. Maybe not. But what's interesting is these similarities don't end with just Sleeping Beauty and Bhumontopuri. There is more to it. Do you want to know about them? I will bring more videos if you find this video interesting and informative. Just hit me in the comment section or subscribe to my channel. Until then, tata! ছোট্ট বন্ধুরা, ভেবো না যে বড়দের গল্প দিচ্ছি বলে আমি তোমাদের ভুলে গিয়েছি. তোমাদের নতুন গল্প আসছে খুব শিগগিরই. এই মঙ্গলবার মণিমালা মুক্তামালা বেরিয়ে পড়েছে মায়া পাহাড়ের অভিযানে. তোমরা তৈরি তো তার সঙ্গী হওয়ার জন্য? আজ তাহলে আসি, আবার দেখা হচ্ছে এই মঙ্গলবার মণিমালা মুক্তামালার গল্প নিয়ে. ততক্ষণের জন্য টাটা, বাই বাই.